Kim Tae-ho wiped the grease from his hands as the cargo ship's engine finally hummed to life. Another successful repair job completed in the depths of space. He had been working on freight haulers for 12 years now, moving goods between Earth and the outer colonies. It was honest work, but nothing exciting ever happened. That was about to change. The communication system crackled to life in his small quarters aboard the freight vessel Busan Express. Tae-ho expected another routine message from Mission Control, but instead a strange blue light filled his cabin. The light formed into the shape of a tall, thin alien with silver skin and large dark eyes. "Greetings, Kim Tae-ho of Earth," the holographic figure spoke in perfect Korean. "I am Veltar of Alteris Prime. If you are seeing this message, then I am dead." Tae-ho dropped his wrench. He recognized the alien immediately. 3 years ago, during a supply stop at Mars Station, he had shared his lunch with this lonely creature. Veltar had seemed sad and distant from the other aliens at the station. Tae-ho had simply offered him half of his rice bowl and some kimchi. They had talked for hours about their home worlds. "My friend," Veltar's image continued, "I have been poisoned by those who seek power on my world. I know I will not survive, so I have made arrangements. You showed me kindness when no one else would. You asked for nothing in return. This is rare in our galaxy." Tae-ho sat heavily on his bunk. This had to be some kind of joke. "According to the laws of my people, I leave everything I own to you. My wealth, my properties, my businesses. But there is more. I also leave you the care of my 2 wives, Lyra and Zara. They are bound to whoever inherits my estate. I know this seems strange to human customs, but it is our way." The hologram flickered. Veltar looked directly at Tae-ho with those large, sad eyes. "I chose you because you have a good heart. Please treat them with the same kindness you showed me. They deserve better than the arranged marriages they were forced into. Perhaps with you they can find happiness. The legal documents are being delivered to your ship now." The message ended, leaving Tae-ho alone in his dimly lit quarters. His hands were shaking. This was impossible. He was just a simple engineer from Busan. He fixed engines and hauled cargo. He did not inherit alien fortunes or marry alien wives. A loud bang came from the cargo bay. Tae-ho hurried down to find a sleek silver pod had attached itself to his ship. Red warning lights flashed as his systems detected the unauthorized docking. "Kim Tae-ho," a mechanical voice announced. "We represent the Galactic Commerce Guild. We have legal documents for your review." 3 strange beings emerged from the pod. The first was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. The second looked like a walking tree with bark-like skin and glowing green eyes. The third was small and round, covered in what looked like silver fur. "I am Trade Representative Yextar," said the blue-skinned alien. "These are my colleagues, Barkhan and Fuzzwin. We have come to inform you that you are now one of the wealthiest beings in this sector of the galaxy." Tae-ho stared at them. "There must be a mistake. I am just an engineer." The tree-like alien, Barkhan, rustled his branches. "No mistake, human. Veltar's will is legally binding. You now own mining rights to 3 asteroid belts, a mansion on Alteris Prime, several businesses, and approximately 40 million galactic credits. And the wives," added the small furry one. "Fuzzwin. Do not forget the wives. Very important in Altarian law." Tae-ho felt dizzy. "I cannot own people. Humans do not do that." "They are not owned," Yextar explained. "They are bound by marriage contract. It transfers with the inheritance. Very different thing. What if I refuse the inheritance? Then Veltar's enemies will claim it," Barkhan said. "The wives will be given to other Altarian nobles. Men who are not kind. Men who saw them only as prizes to be won. Veltar specifically chose you," Fuzzwin added. "He studied human culture. He believed you would treat them fairly." Yextar handed Tae-ho a small crystal device. "This contains all legal documents. Study them. You have 48 hours to decide. If you accept, we will arrange transport to Alteris Prime." "What are they like?" Tae-ho asked quietly. "The wives." The 3 aliens looked at each other. Yextar activated a small holographic projector. 2 figures appeared in the air before them. The first was beautiful in an otherworldly way. She had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer, large silver eyes, and what looked like gills on her neck. Her hair was long and white, flowing like she was underwater. "This is Lyra of Neridia," Yextar explained. "She's a scientist. Very intelligent. She has developed new ways to make dead planets suitable for life, famous throughout the galaxy." The second figure was completely different. She was tall and strong-looking, with golden skin marked by ritual scars. Her hair was black and braided with metal ornaments. She carried herself like a warrior, proud and fierce. "This is Zara of Kethmoran," Barkhan said, "former princess of the Desert Clans. Expert in combat and strategy. She commanded armies before her marriage to Veltar. They both agreed to the marriages to bring peace between their worlds and Alteres," Fuzwin explained. "Political alliances, not love matches." Tejo studied the images. Both women looked strong and intelligent, but he could see something else in their eyes. A sadness that reminded him of Veltar that day at Mars Station. "What do they think about this inheritance?" "We have not told them yet," Yextar admitted. "We wanted to see if you would accept first. No point in upsetting them if you refuse." Tejo was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his simple life, his small apartment back on Earth, his routine job. Then he thought about Veltar, alone and poisoned by his own people. He thought about two women trapped in loveless marriages, about to be passed along to other men who might treat them badly. "If I accept," he said slowly. "What exactly am I accepting?" "Legal responsibility for Veltar's estate and businesses," Yextar said. "Protection and care for his wives according to Altarian law, and the right to make decisions about their future. But I do not have to force them into anything?" "No," Barkhan said. "You would be their guardian, not their master. How you handle that guardianship is up to you." Tejo thought about his grandmother's words from long ago. "Tejo, when someone shows you kindness, you must pass it on to others." He had shown kindness to Veltar. Now he had a chance to pass that kindness to others who needed it. "I need to see them first," he said finally. "To talk to them. To make sure they understand they will have choices." The three aliens nodded approvingly. "Wise decision," Fuzwin said. "We will arrange a communication link." As they prepared to leave, Yexatar turned back to Tejo. "One warning, human. Veltar had enemies. Powerful ones. They wanted his wealth, and they will not be happy about this inheritance. If you accept, you may be in danger." Tejo nodded. He had expected as much. Nothing this important came without risks. After the aliens left, Tejo sat alone in his quarters, holding the crystal device containing his new future. Tomorrow he would speak with Lyra and Zara. Tomorrow, he would make a decision that would change not just his life, but the lives of two women he had never met. He thought again of Veltar's sad eyes and his grandmother's wisdom about kindness. Sometimes, Tejo realized, kindness was not just about being nice. Sometimes it was about being brave enough to help others when they needed it most. The stars outside his window seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities he had never imagined. The luxury star cruiser was unlike anything Tejo had ever seen. The walls seemed to glow with soft light, and the floors felt warm beneath his feet. Other passengers moved through the corridors like they belonged in this world of advanced technology and alien wealth. Tejo felt out of place in his simple work clothes, but the ship's crew treated him with respect once they learned who he was. 3 days of faster-than-light travel brought them to Alteris Prime. Through the viewing windows, Tejo saw a world that took his breath away. The planet was covered in floating cities that hung in the sky like jewels, connected by bridges of light. Waterfalls fell from the floating landmasses into clouds below, and strange flying creatures danced between the aerial cities. "First time to Alteris, honored passenger?" asked the ship's captain, a friendly alien with tentacles for hair. "First time anywhere outside my home system," Tejo admitted. The captain smiled, showing rows of small white teeth. "Veltar chose well. Humans have good hearts. You will do fine here." When they docked at the main spaceport, Tejo was met by a group of official-looking aliens. At their head stood a tall female with the same silver skin as Veltar, but her eyes were cold and unfriendly. "I am High Counselor Yelnara," she said in heavily accented Korean. "I knew Veltar well. His death was a great loss to our people." Tejo bowed respectfully. "I'm sorry for your loss. He was a good friend to me." "Yes, so we have heard. You shared food with him at Mars Station. A simple act of kindness that has now made you very wealthy." Her tone suggested she found this amusing rather than touching. The journey to Veltar's estate took them through the capital city. Tejo stared in wonder at buildings that twisted into impossible shapes, vehicles that flew without wings, and gardens that grew in mid-air. The technology was hundreds of years ahead of Earth's. "Does all of this belong to me now?" Teho asked. Not the city, Yelnara replied, but the estate, the mining operations, the businesses, and of course the wives. They are waiting at the mansion for the funeral ceremony. The mansion was built into one of the smaller floating mountains. It was enormous, with rooms carved directly into the living rock and gardens that hung over empty space. Water flowed through channels cut into the floors, filling the air with the sound of gentle streams. Two figures waited in the main courtyard. The first was Lyra. Seeing her in person was different from the hologram. She was smaller than Teho had expected, barely reaching his shoulder. Her blue skin had a pearl-like quality that caught the light, and her silver eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of deep oceans. When she was nervous or thinking, her gill slits would flutter slightly. She wore simple robes that flowed like water around her. The second was Zara. She was tall, nearly as tall as Teho, with the bearing of someone used to command. Her golden skin was marked with intricate scars that formed patterns across her arms and face. These were not wounds from battle, but ritual markings that told stories of honor and achievement. Her black hair was braided with small metal ornaments that chimed softly when she moved. She wore practical clothing that allowed for easy movement, and Teho could see the outline of hidden weapons. Both women studied him with careful eyes. Teho felt like he was being evaluated by two very intelligent people who were trying to decide if he was a threat or a fool. "You are smaller than I expected," Zara said in accented but clear Korean. Her voice was strong and direct. "You are younger than the hologram suggested," Lyra added. Her voice was softer, more musical. "How old are you, human?" 35 standard years, Teho replied. "And please call me Teho. I am not comfortable with formalities." The two women exchanged glances. This was apparently not what they had expected. Yelnara cleared her throat. "The funeral ceremony begins in 1 hour. You will need to change into proper clothing. The servants will help you." As they prepared for the ceremony, Teho learned more about Altarian customs. The dead were honored with 3 days of storytelling, where friends and family shared memories of the departed. Veltar's body had been placed in a crystal chamber filled with preserving gases, surrounded by symbols of his achievements. Teho was given robes similar to those worn by family members. The fabric was incredibly light but warm, and it seemed to change color slightly as he moved. Lyra and Zara wore more elaborate versions in colors that honored their homeworlds. The funeral was held in a great hall carved from the mountain itself. Hundreds of aliens attended, representing dozens of different species. Teho recognized some from various space stations, but many were completely new to him. When it came time for family members to speak, Lyra went first. She talked about Veltar's kindness and his love for learning. Her voice was clear and strong, but Teho could hear the sadness underneath. Zara spoke next, describing Veltar's courage and his efforts to bring peace between warring worlds. She stood like a warrior giving a battle report, but her words were gentle. Then it was Teho's turn. He had worried about this moment during the entire journey. What could he say about a man he had only met once? "I knew Veltar for only a few hours," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "But in those hours I saw something special. He was lonely and far from home, surrounded by strangers who seemed to have no time for him. We shared a simple meal and talked about our worlds, our families, our dreams. The hall was completely silent. Even the soft sound of the water channels seemed to fade away. He told me about Altaris Prime, about how beautiful it was, about how much he missed it when he traveled. He asked me about Earth, about our seasons and our food. He was curious about everything, eager to learn. When I gave him some kimchi, he ate it even though I could tell it was too spicy for him. He did not want to hurt my feelings." Some of the aliens in the audience were nodding. They recognized the Veltar that Teho described. "I did not know he was wealthy or important. I only knew he was a person far from home who needed a friend. He gave me far more than I gave him. He taught me that kindness has no species, no boundaries, no limits. Today I promise to honor his memory by showing the same kindness to others that he showed to me." When Teho finished speaking, the hall remained silent for a long moment. Then an old alien near the front began a low humming sound. Others joined in, and soon the entire hall was filled with what Teho realized was the Altarian way of showing approval and respect. After the ceremony, as the guests began to leave, Lyra approached him. "That was well spoken," she said quietly. "You understood him better than many who knew him for years." Zara joined them. her expression softer than before. Veltar spoke of you often after your meeting. He said you had something most beings in the galaxy have forgotten. What was that? Tejo asked. Simple human decency, Zara replied. He said humans still remember how to be genuinely kind without expecting reward. As they walked back through the mansion together, Yelnara pulled Tejo aside. Her cold expression had not changed, but her voice was slightly warmer. You surprised many people today, she said. Some expected you to be here only for the wealth. Others thought you would be crude or ignorant. Instead, you showed respect for our customs and genuine grief for our friend. Veltar was worth grieving for, Tejo said simply. Yes, he was. But now comes the difficult part. You have inherited not just wealth, but responsibility. Lyra and Zara are not ordinary women. They are brilliant, powerful, and they have been hurt by circumstances beyond their control. How you treat them will be watched by the entire galaxy. Tejo looked toward where the two women were speaking quietly together, their heads bent close in conversation. I do not want to own anyone, he said. I want to help them find their own happiness. Yelnara studied his face for a long moment. Perhaps Veltar was wiser than any of us realized. That night, as Tejo lay in the enormous bedroom that had once belonged to his friend, he thought about the path ahead. He had accepted the inheritance, but he still had no idea how to handle his new responsibilities. Two brilliant women now depended on him for their futures, and somewhere in the galaxy, enemies were planning to take everything away. But for the first time since receiving Veltar's message, Tejo felt like he might actually be able to do this. The funeral had shown him that kindness truly was universal, and that sometimes the simplest gestures could have the most profound impact. Tomorrow, he would begin learning how to be worthy of the trust that Veltar had placed in him. The morning sun filtered through the crystal windows of Veltar's mansion, casting rainbow patterns across the stone floors. Tejo woke up in the massive bedroom feeling lost and overwhelmed. Everything was too big, too advanced, too alien. He missed his small quarters on the cargo ship where everything had its place and purpose. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. When he opened it, he found Lyra holding a tray with what looked like breakfast. Steam rose from several bowls containing foods he did not recognize. I thought you might be hungry, she said, her gill slits fluttering slightly, and confused about our food. I selected items that should be safe for human digestion. Tejo stepped aside to let her in. Thank you. I have to admit, I'm not sure how anything works here. Lyra set the tray on a floating table that adjusted its height automatically. Veltar had your ship's computer analyzed before his death. He learned about human nutritional needs and had the kitchen systems programmed accordingly. Even in death, his friend was still taking care of him. Tejo felt a wave of sadness and gratitude. Lyra, he said carefully, I want you to know that I do not expect anything from you or Zara. The marriage contracts may be legal here, but where I come from, people choose their own relationships. She studied him with those large silver eyes. What exactly are you saying? I am saying you are free to make your own choices. Both of you. If you want to stay here, stay. If you want to leave, leave. If you want to find someone else to love, I will help you do that. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. That is not how things work in the galaxy, Tejo. Women like us do not get to choose. Maybe it is time that changed. After breakfast, Lyra offered to show him around the estate. The mansion was built into 3 levels of the floating mountain. The top level contained living quarters and entertainment areas. The middle level had offices, laboratories, and meeting rooms. The bottom level housed the staff quarters, kitchens, and mechanical systems. Veltar was not just wealthy, Lyra explained as they walked through a laboratory filled with equipment Tejo could not identify. He was brilliant. This is where I do my research into terraforming technology. Terraforming? Tejo asked. Making dead planets suitable for life. It usually takes thousands of years, but I have developed ways to speed up the process. My techniques could help millions of beings find new homes. Tejo examined some of the equipment. His engineering background helped him understand some of the basic principles, even if the technology was far beyond Earth's capabilities. This energy distribution system, he said, pointing to a complex array of crystals, it is not balanced properly. You are losing about 15% efficiency. Lyra looked surprised. How can you tell? The heat patterns. See how these crystals glow brighter than those ones? The energy is not flowing evenly. Tejo traced the connections with his finger. If you adjusted the positioning slightly, you could improve the flow. Within an hour, they had reconfigured the system. Lyra ran several tests and confirmed that efficiency had improved by 18%. Remarkable, she said, looking at Tae-ho with new respect. You solved in minutes a problem I have been working on for months. How sometimes an outside view helps? You understand the advanced science, but I understand basic engineering principles. Together we see things neither of us would see alone. That afternoon, Tae-ho found Zara in the mansion's training room. She was practicing with a weapon that looked like a sword made of pure energy. Her movements were flowing and deadly, each strike precise and controlled. Impressive, Tae-ho said when she finished her routine. Zara deactivated the weapon and turned to face him. Do humans train in combat? Some do. I learned basic martial arts when I was young, and I try to stay in shape. Tae-ho gestured to a corner where he had set up some simple exercise equipment he had brought from his ship. Nothing as advanced as what you do. Zara looked at his primitive weights and exercise bars with curiosity. Show me, Tae-ho began his daily routine. It was simple compared to Zara's advanced techniques, but it focused on building practical strength and endurance. Zara watched with interest as he completed exercises designed to work in zero gravity, or cramped ship quarters. Your form is inefficient, she said when he finished. But your dedication is impressive. Most wealthy beings hire others to maintain their physical condition. I am not most wealthy beings, Tae-ho replied, wiping sweat from his face. I am still just an engineer who fixes things. Perhaps, Zara said thoughtfully. But you are an engineer who now owns 3 asteroid mining operations. Would you like to see them? The next day, they took a fast shuttle to the nearest asteroid belt. Tae-ho had never seen mining operations on this scale. Massive ships carved chunks from asteroids while smaller vessels collected the valuable minerals. Robotic systems sorted and processed the materials with incredible efficiency. But Tae-ho's trained eye saw problems. The extraction rate could be improved, he told the mine supervisor. An insectoid alien named Clicktar. Your drilling patterns are creating stress fractures that waste usable material. Clicktar's antenna twitched with annoyance. Human, these operations have run successfully for 50 years. Successfully, yes, but not optimally. Tae-ho sketched out a new drilling pattern on a datapad. This approach would increase yield by at least 20%, while reducing structural damage to the asteroids. Zara and Lyra watched as Tae-ho spent the day working with the mining crews, showing them techniques based on Earth's mining experience. The workers were skeptical at first, but when the new methods produced immediate improvements, their attitude changed quickly. 23% increase in yield, Clicktar reported that evening, his tone much more respectful, and the asteroids remained stable for further extraction. How did you know this would work? Sometimes the old ways are better than the new ways, Tae-ho replied. And sometimes you just need to think about the problem differently. On the trip back to Alteris Prime, Lyra sat beside Tae-ho on the shuttle. You continue to surprise me, she said. First my laboratory, now the mines. Is there anything you cannot improve? Plenty of things, Tae-ho laughed. I still cannot figure out how to work the shower controls in my bathroom. Zara joined their conversation from the pilot's seat. Perhaps we should teach you some things as well, starting with proper combat training. If you are going to be wealthy and important, you will need to know how to defend yourself. Why would I need to defend myself? Lyra and Zara exchanged glances. Because Veltar had enemies, Lyra said quietly, and now you have inherited them along with everything else. That night, as they sat in the mansion's main hall sharing dinner, alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the building. Red lights flashed and the house's defensive systems activated automatically. What is happening? Tae-ho asked. Zara was already on her feet, weapons appearing in her hands as if by magic. We are under attack. Through the crystal windows, they could see dark shapes moving through the sky toward the mansion. Enemy ships, sleek and predatory, were approaching fast. Who would attack us here? Tae-ho demanded. People who think a human should not own Altarian resources, Lyra said, her calm voice contrasting with the chaos around them. People who want what you have inherited. Zara moved to the mansion's control panel, her fingers dancing over alien controls. Defensive shields are active, but they will not hold for long against this many ships. How many ships? Tae-ho asked. 12, Zara replied grimly. Professional military-grade vessels. This is not a random attack. Someone planned this carefully. Teho felt his heart racing, but his mind stayed clear. Years of handling emergencies on cargo ships had taught him to think under pressure. What are our options? We fight, Zara said simply. We hide, Lyra suggested. We run, Teho added. The mansion has escape routes, right? Zara nodded. But if we run, they will destroy everything. All of Veltar's work, all of Lyra's research, everything he wanted us to protect. The first energy blast hit the mansion's shields, lighting up the night sky. The entire mountain shook with the impact. Teho looked at his two companions. Lyra with her brilliant mind and gentle nature. Zara with her warrior's heart and protective instincts. Both of them were depending on him to make the right choice. Then we fight, he said. But we fight smart. Zara smiled for the first time since he had met her. It was a warrior's smile, fierce and deadly. Now you are beginning to understand what it means to be part of this family. As another blast shook the mansion, Teho realized that he was no longer just an engineer trying to figure out his inheritance. He was becoming something new, something stronger. He was becoming someone worthy of the trust that Veltar had placed in him. The real test was just beginning. The battle for the mansion raged through the night. Teho discovered that Veltar had built his home to be more than just a residence. Hidden weapon systems emerged from the mountain itself, returning fire at the attacking ships. The ancient stone that looked so peaceful during the day now bristled with energy cannons and defensive barriers. Veltar knew this day would come. Zara explained as she coordinated the mansion's defenses from a hidden command center.
He prepared for war even while working for peace. Teho watched the tactical displays, trying to understand the battle.
His engineering mind began to see patterns in the enemy's attack formation. They are not trying to destroy the mansion, he realized. They want to capture it intact. Lyra looked up from a communication console where she had been trying to contact authorities. That makes sense. If they destroy everything, they get nothing. They need the mining rights documents and the research data, which means they need us alive, Zara added grimly, at least long enough to access the secured systems. A new voice crackled over the communication system. Attention, human. This is Commander Drakmon of the Altarian Defense Fleet. Surrender now and you will not be harmed. Teho recognized the name from documents he had been studying. Drakmon was one of the military officers who had opposed Veltar's peace initiatives. Let me talk to them, Teho said. Zara shook her head. They are not interested in negotiation. Maybe not, but they might say something useful. Teho activated the communication system. Commander Drakmon, this is Kim Teho. Why are you attacking me? You do not belong here, human. Altarian resources should remain in Altarian hands. Surrender the inheritance and return to your primitive world. The inheritance was given to me legally. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the courts. Drakmon laughed harshly. The courts serve those with power, human. And soon, the power will be ours. The communication cut off, but Teho had heard enough. This is not just about me, he told the others. This is about something bigger. Before anyone could respond, new ships appeared on the tactical display. But these were different, flying in formation and broadcasting friendly identification codes. Reinforcements, Lyra said with relief. Someone is coming to help us. The new ships engaged Drakmon's forces, and within minutes the attacking vessels were retreating. The mansion's communication system activated again, this time with a different voice. Teho, this is Captain Su-Jin of the Earth Defense Corps. We received a distress signal from your location. Are you safe?
Teho was amazed.
Earth had sent military ships to protect him? We are safe, Captain. Thank you for the rescue. Do not thank me yet. We need to talk. There is more happening here than a simple inheritance dispute. Within an hour, Captain Park Su-Jin was sitting in the mansion's main hall with Teho, Lyra, and Zara. She was a small, efficient woman with the bearing of someone used to command. Earth intelligence has been monitoring this situation, she explained. What happened tonight was not random. It was part of a larger conspiracy that threatens the stability of this entire sector. She activated a holographic display showing star charts and political boundaries. 3 months ago, our agents learned that certain Altarian nobles have been planning to seize control of the Federation government. They need resources to fund their coup, and Veltar's inheritance represents a significant portion of the Federation's mineral wealth. So they killed Veltar to get his property, Zara said, her voice hard with anger. Yes, but they did not expect him to leave everything to a human. That created a legal problem they had not planned for. Lyra leaned forward. What kind of legal problem? Captain Park smiled grimly. Under Federation law, inheritance disputes involving non-citizens must be resolved by the Galactic Commerce Guild, not local courts. The conspirators cannot simply declare the inheritance invalid and seize the property. So they decided to kill me instead, Tejo said. Exactly. With you dead, the inheritance would revert to the Altarian government where their allies could claim it. Tejo stood up and walked to the crystal windows overlooking the floating city. The lights below looked peaceful now, but he knew there were people down there who wanted him dead. Who is leading this conspiracy? High Chancellor Mordak, Captain Park replied. He has been building a power base for years, promising military expansion and greater Altarian dominance over other species. Zara hissed in anger. Mordak. I should have known. He opposed every peace treaty Veltar negotiated. There is more, Captain Park continued. Our intelligence suggests that Mordak has been suppressing research into alternative energy sources. He wants the Federation to remain dependent on military conquest for resources. Lyra's gill slits fluttered rapidly. My terraforming research. If successful, it would make conquest unnecessary. Planets could be made suitable for habitation without taking them from other species. Which is why Veltar supported your work, Tejo realized. He was not just trying to make money. He was trying to change how the galaxy works. Over the following days, Captain Park's agents worked with Tejo and his companions to uncover the full scope of the conspiracy. They discovered that Mordak had been embezzling military funds, bribing officials, and eliminating anyone who threatened his plans. We have enough evidence to expose him, Captain Park reported, but we need to present it to the right people at the right time. The Grand Assembly meets next week, Lyra said. Representatives from every Federation world will be there. Perfect, Tejo said. But first, we need to make sure the evidence cannot be destroyed. Using his engineering skills and Lyra's scientific knowledge, Tejo created multiple copies of all the evidence, storing them in secure locations throughout the galaxy. Zara used her military contacts to gather additional testimony from soldiers who had witnessed Mordak's illegal activities. But as they prepared their case, Mordak made his own preparations. More assassination attempts followed, each more sophisticated than the last. Poisoned food, sabotage transportation, hidden explosives. Only Zara's warrior training and paranoid caution kept them all alive. He is getting desperate, Zara observed after thwarting yet another attempt on their lives. That makes him more dangerous. The night before the Grand Assembly session, Tejo found himself unable to sleep. He stood on the mansion's highest balcony, looking out over the floating city and thinking about everything that had happened. Lyra joined him, her pale skin glowing softly in the moonlight. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, Tejo admitted. I am just an engineer from Earth. Tomorrow I have to stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and accuse one of their leaders of murder and treason. You are not just an engineer anymore, Lyra said softly. You are the person Veltar chose to carry on his work. You are the human who improved my research and made the mining operations more efficient. You are the man who risked his life to protect Zara and me. Tejo looked at her, seeing something new in her silver eyes. Lyra, I know what you said about choices, she interrupted. About how people should be free to choose their own relationships. I want you to know that I am choosing to stay with you. Not because of any legal contract, but because I respect who you are and what you are trying to do. Before Tejo could respond, Zara's voice called from behind them. The night is beautiful for confessions, she said, stepping onto the balcony. I hope you will not mind if I add my own. She moved to stand on Tejo's other side. Her warrior's posture softened by genuine emotion. I was born a princess, but I have spent my life as a prize to be won by men who saw only my title and my beauty. You are the first man to look at me and see a person worth knowing, rather than a trophy worth possessing. The three of them stood together in comfortable silence, looking out over the alien city that had somehow become home. Whatever happens tomorrow, Tejo said finally, we face it together. Together, Lyra agreed. Together, Zara echoed. In the distance, the first light of dawn began to touch the floating spires of the city. Soon they would stand before the Grand Assembly and reveal the truth about Mordak's conspiracy. The fate of the Federation and their own futures would be decided, but for now they had each other, and the growing certainty that what they had built together was stronger than any legal contract or political scheme. They had built something based on choice, trust, and mutual respect. They had built a real family. The Grand Assembly Hall was the most magnificent structure Tejo had ever seen. Built from crystallized starlight and suspended between 3 moons, it could hold representatives from 10,000 worlds. Today, delegates from across the galaxy had come to witness what many were calling the trial of the century. Tejo sat at the defendant's table, wearing formal robes that Lyra had helped him select. Beside him sat his legal representative, a brilliant lawyer named Advocate Kelthera, who had volunteered to take his case. Captain Park and several Earth diplomatic officials sat behind them in the observer section. Across the hall, High Chancellor Mordak sat with his own team of lawyers. He was an imposing figure, tall even for an Altarian, with silver skin that seemed to glow with inner light. His dark eyes swept the assembly with the confidence of someone who had never lost an important battle. The presiding judge was Ancient Wisdom Yargoth, a being so old that no one remembered which species he originally belonged to. His body had been modified so many times over the millennia that he looked like a living sculpture of metal and crystal. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like distant thunder. This assembly is called to determine the legitimacy of the inheritance granted by Veltar of Alteris Prime to Kim Tejo of Earth, Yargoth announced. The challenger claims that no human should control Altarian resources, and that the inheritance was obtained through deception. Mordak's chief lawyer, a sharp-featured alien named Prosecutor Vexilin, stood to present the opening argument. Honored delegates, Vexilin began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. We are here because our laws have been twisted to serve foreign interests. This human spent mere hours with the deceased, shared a single meal, and somehow convinced a brilliant diplomat to leave him everything. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many of the delegates had never seen a human before, and they studied Tejo with curious eyes. The defendant claims friendship, Vexilin continued. But what kind of friend profits from another's death? What kind of friend accepts the forced servitude of 2 unwilling women? The human legal system may allow such things, but Altarian law demands justice. When it came time for Advocate Kelthera to respond, she stood calmly and activated a holographic display. Honored delegates, we are indeed here because of a friendship, but not the kind the prosecutor suggests. The display showed images of Tejo's cargo ship in Mars Station. 3 years ago, my client was a simple engineer earning modest wages hauling freight between worlds. He had no knowledge of Altarian politics or Veltar's wealth. The display changed to show security footage from Mars Station, time-stamped 3 years earlier. In the recording, Tejo could be seen sharing his meal with Veltar, talking animatedly while the alien listened with obvious pleasure. This footage shows the entire interaction. No money changed hands. No promises were made. No services were exchanged. A lonely being far from home was shown simple kindness by a stranger who asked for nothing in return. The assembly watched in silence as the recording continued, showing Tejo and Veltar laughing together over shared stories. The prosecution asked what kind of friend profits from another's death. Kelthara continued. I ask what kind of friend remembers a brief kindness for 3 years and chooses to reward it with trust. Veltar made his choice freely, with full knowledge of his options. The legal arguments continued for hours, covering inheritance law, species rights, and marriage contracts. But Tejo knew that the real battle would come when the personal testimonies began. Lyra was called to testify first. She walked to the witness platform with grace and dignity, her blue skin seeming to glow under the hall's lights. State your relationship to the defendant, Prosecutor Vexilin demanded. According to Altarian law, I am his wife, Lyra replied clearly. According to my own choice, I am his partner and friend. You were married to Veltar for 8 years. How can you claim to love this human after knowing him for less than 8 days? Lyra's gill slits fluttered slightly, but her voice remained steady. I was married to Veltar as part of a political alliance. He was kind to me, but we never loved each other as husband and wife. We were friends and colleagues, nothing more. She turned to address the full assembly. Tejo offered me something no man in the galaxy had ever offered before. He offered me the right to choose my own future. He told me I was free to leave, free to find someone else, free to pursue my own happiness. And yet you stayed. Vexilin pressed. Why? Because I discovered that a man who offers you freedom is a man worth staying with. Because he looks at my scientific work and sees ways to make it better rather than ways to profit from it. Because he treats me as an equal partner rather than a beautiful possession. When Zara took the stand, her warrior's bearing commanded immediate respect from the assembly. Several military delegates sat up straighter as she approached the platform. You were a princess before your marriage to Veltar, Prosecutor Vexlin said. You commanded armies, ruled territories. Now you serve a human engineer. How does this serve your honor? Zara's golden eyes flashed dangerously. I serve no one, she said in a voice that could cut steel. I choose to stand beside a man who has proven himself worthy of my respect. How has he proven this? By facing 12 military attack ships to protect Lyra and me. By standing up to powerful enemies who want to silence the truth. By learning our customs and respecting our ways while never abandoning his own principles. Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. You ask about honor? There is no honor in forcing women into unwanted marriages. There is no honor in treating people as property to be inherited. Tejo offered us the greatest honor possible, the right to choose our own lives. Finally, it was Tejo's turn to testify. As he walked to the platform, he felt the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. Representatives from species he had never heard of were studying him, trying to understand what made humans special enough to inherit Altarian wealth. Kim Tejo of Earth, ancient wisdom Yargoth intoned. Why should this assembly allow you to keep an inheritance that makes you one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy? Tejo took a deep breath. Honored delegates, I did not ask for this inheritance. I did not scheme or plan or manipulate to get it. I simply showed kindness to a lonely being who needed a friend. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed images of the improvements he had made to the mining operations and Lyra's laboratory. Since accepting the inheritance, I have tried to honor Veltar's memory by continuing his work. The mining operations are more efficient and more sustainable. Lyra's research is producing breakthrough results that could help millions of beings find new homes. We have created jobs, improved technology, and worked for peace. But why should a human control these resources? Prosecutor Vexlin interrupted. What gives your species the right to own Altarian property? Nothing, Tejo replied, surprising everyone in the hall. My species has no special rights, but I do not claim these resources because I am human. I claim them because Veltar chose to give them to me, and because I am trying to use them to make the galaxy a better place. He turned to address the full assembly. Veltar believed that kindness should be rewarded, that friendship should transcend species barriers, and that resources should be used to build rather than destroy. If you take this inheritance away from me, you are saying that these beliefs were wrong. You are saying that kindness should not be rewarded, that friendship should stay within species lines, and that only birth determines worth. The hall was completely silent. Even the soft humming of the environmental system seemed to fade away. I cannot promise that I will always make the right decisions, Tejo continued, but I can promise that I will try to honor the trust that Veltar placed in me. I will try to be worthy of the friendship he offered, and the partners who have chosen to stand beside me. When the testimonies ended, ancient wisdom Yargoth called for a recess while the judges deliberated. Tejo, Lyra, and Zara waited in a small chamber adjacent to the main hall. Whatever happens, Lyra said, you spoke with honor. The assembly was moved by your words, Zara added. I saw it in their faces, but Tejo was not so sure. Politics in the galaxy were complicated, and he was still just a human engineer trying to navigate forces beyond his understanding. After 3 hours, they were called back to the main hall. Ancient wisdom Yargoth rose to announce the decision. This assembly has considered all testimony and evidence, he began. We find that the inheritance from Veltar to Kim Tejo was legal and freely given. However, we also find that the marriage contracts binding Lyra and Zara are incompatible with the principles of individual freedom that this assembly supports. Tejo felt his heart sink. Were they going to take Lyra and Zara away from him? Therefore, Yargoth continued, we declare the marriage contracts null and void. Lyra and Zara are free to make their own choices about their futures, including the choice to remain with Kim Tejo if they so desire. The hall erupted in noise as delegates discussed this unprecedented decision. Never before had the assembly invalidated traditional marriage contracts. Furthermore, Yargoth said, raising his voice above the commotion, we find evidence of criminal conspiracy in the attempts to invalidate this inheritance. High Chancellor Mordak, you are charged with murder, embezzlement, and treason against the Federation. Security forces immediately moved to arrest Mordak, but the fallen Chancellor was not finished yet. He activated a personal shield and drew a weapon that had been hidden in his ceremonial robes. If I cannot have the inheritance, he snarled, then no one can. He fired at Taeho, but Zara was faster. She threw herself between the energy blast and its target, taking the full force of the weapon. As she collapsed, her own hidden weapons appeared in her hands, and her return shot struck Mordak down. The Great Hall erupted in chaos as security forces swarmed the area, and medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Taeho knelt beside Zara, holding her head as Lyra checked her injuries. You saved my life, he whispered. Zara smiled weakly. That is what family does, she replied. As the medical teams worked to stabilize Zara and arrest the surviving conspirators, Taeho realized that they had won more than just a legal victory. They had proven that friendship, love, and loyalty could transcend species barriers and traditional boundaries. The galaxy would never be the same. 2 years had passed since the trial at the Grand Assembly and the floating mansion on Alteris. Prime had been transformed into something Veltar never could have imagined. What had once been the private home of a wealthy diplomat was now the headquarters of the Veltar Foundation for Galactic Cooperation. Taeho stood on the main balcony, watching as shuttles from dozens of different worlds arrived and departed from the landing platforms below. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, and artists came here to work together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system of rigid species separation. The morning reports director, said Minho, Taeho's assistant, and one of the first humans to join the Foundation's staff. The young man had arrived from Earth 6 months earlier, eager to be part of something that was changing the galaxy. Taeho accepted the datapad with a smile. He still was not used to being called director, but the title came with the job of running the Foundation. Anything urgent? The terraforming project on Kepler 442b is ahead of schedule, thanks to Dr. Lyra's new atmospheric processors. The Asteroid Mining Consortium reports a 37% increase in efficiency using your improved extraction techniques, and we have received formal applications from 6 new species wanting to join the cultural exchange program. It was hard to believe how much had changed. The Foundation's work was spreading throughout the galaxy, bringing together beings who had never cooperated before. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work side by side. Where are Lyra and Zara this morning? Taeho asked. Dr. Lyra is in Laboratory 7, working on the new algae strains for the Ocean World project. Commander Zara is training the new security recruits in the lower gymnasium. Taeho nodded and made his way through the mansion. The building had been expanded several times to accommodate the growing number of researchers and staff. What had once been Veltar's private library was now a communication center connecting the Foundation to projects across the galaxy. The old dining room had become a conference center where beings from different worlds could meet and share ideas. He found Lyra in her laboratory, surrounded by tanks of bubbling green liquid and holographic displays showing complex molecular structures. Her blue skin glowed with satisfaction as she monitored her latest experiment. Good morning, my love, Taeho said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, her gill slits fluttering with contentment. Very good morning. The algae samples are exceeding all expectations. If these tests continue to succeed, we can begin full-scale ocean seeding on Neredia 2 within 6 months. That would give your people their first new colony world in over a century. Our people, Lyra corrected gently. Humans will be part of this colony too. We are building something new, remember? The colony projects were perhaps the most ambitious part of the Foundation's work. Instead of species conquering or claiming worlds for themselves, they were learning to build mixed communities where different beings could share knowledge and resources. The results were remarkable. Agricultural worlds that should have taken decades to establish were now producing food within years. Mining colonies were extracting resources without damaging ecosystems. Desert worlds were blooming with new life. Taeho made his way to the gymnasium where Zara was conducting her morning training session. Through the observation windows, He could see her working with a group of young beings from various species. There were humans from Earth, insectoids, from the hive worlds, amphibians from the water planets, and even a few young Altarians. "Your stance is too rigid," Zara was telling a human recruit named Jiwoo. "Combat is like water. You must flow around your opponent's strength and find their weakness." She demonstrated a complex move that looked like a dance, flowing smoothly from defense to attack in one graceful motion. The scar patterns on her golden skin seemed to shimmer as she moved, telling the story of her warrior past. When the training session ended, Zara joined Taeho in the observation area. Despite the intense workout, she looked energized rather than tired. "How are the new recruits progressing?" Taeho asked. "Better than expected. The humans learn quickly, and they bring new ideas that improve our traditional techniques. The insectoids have natural advantages in group coordination. The amphibians excel at aquatic operations." Zara had reluctantly agreed to establish a security force for the Foundation after several attempts by remaining conspirators to sabotage their projects. But she had insisted that it be different from traditional military units. The Foundation's security teams were trained not just in combat, but in diplomacy, cultural sensitivity, and conflict resolution. "Any word from the Galactic Council about our proposal?" Zara asked. "They are still debating it. Some council members think our security model is too radical. The Foundation had proposed creating mixed-species peacekeeping forces that could respond to conflicts throughout the galaxy. Instead of one species imposing peace on others, these teams would work to help different groups find common ground and resolve disputes through negotiation rather than force." Later that morning, the three of them gathered in what had once been Feltar's private study for their weekly planning meeting. The room was filled with holographic displays showing the status of dozens of projects across the galaxy. "The cultural exchange program is our biggest success," Lyra reported. "We now have over 10,000 participants from 300 different worlds. Artists, scientists, philosophers, and teachers are sharing knowledge and creating things that none of them could have created alone. The economic impact has been equally impressive," Taeho added. "Trade between previously hostile species has increased by 400%. The asteroid mining cooperatives are so successful that several major corporations are adopting our partnership model. And the political changes continue to spread," Zara said. 12 planetary governments have reformed their laws to allow mixed-species citizenship. The Galactic Commerce Guild has established new categories for interspecies businesses. But their greatest achievement was more personal. 6 months earlier, they had held a ceremony that made galactic history. In front of representatives from hundreds of worlds, Taeho, Lyra, and Zara had exchanged vows of partnership that combined traditions from Earth, Neridia, and Kethmoran. It was not a traditional marriage by any species standards, but it was something new and beautiful. They had chosen each other freely, without legal coercion or political pressure. Their relationship was based on love, respect, and shared dreams for the future. "There is something I need to tell you both," Lyra said, her gill slits fluttering with nervous excitement. Taeho and Zara looked at her with concern. Lyra was rarely nervous about anything. "The medical examination I had last week revealed something unexpected," she continued. "I am pregnant with twins." The room fell silent. Interspecies reproduction was extremely rare in the galaxy, and human Neridian children had never been recorded in medical literature. "Are you sure?" Taeho asked softly. Dr. Yoon confirmed it 3 times. "The children appear to be healthy and developing normally. They will have characteristics from both species, but the genetic compatibility is much better than anyone expected." Zara moved to embrace Lyra. "This is wonderful news. These children will be proof that love truly can transcend species barriers." Over the following months, news of the pregnancy spread throughout the galaxy. Some beings were scandalized by the idea of mixed heritage children, but many more were excited by the possibilities. Scientists requested permission to study the development process. Artists created works celebrating the new life. Philosophers debated what this meant for the future of galactic civilization. When the twins were finally born, they were more beautiful than anyone had imagined. The boy, whom they named Vel, had his father's dark hair and his mother's silver eyes. His skin was a warm golden color, and he had small gill slits that allowed him to breathe both air and water. The girl named Hope had her mother's white hair and her father's brown eyes. Her skin was pale blue with golden undertones, and she seemed to glow with inner light. The children's birth was celebrated across hundreds of worlds. They received gifts from species that had never communicated before their parents brought them together. Poets wrote songs about them. Scientists studied them with wonder and respect. Politicians pointed to them as proof that cooperation was possible. As Tejo held his newborn children in the mansion's nursery, looking out over the floating city that had become his home, he thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 3 years ago, he had been a simple engineer sharing lunch with a lonely alien. Now he was helping to reshape the galaxy's future. "Do you think Veltar would be proud of what we have built?" he asked his partners. Lyra smiled as she fed their daughter. "I think he knew this would happen. I think he saw something in you that day at Mars Station. Something that told him you could bring beings together instead of driving them apart." Zara was teaching young Vel to hold his head up, her warrior's hands surprisingly gentle with the tiny infant. "He chose well. You have honored his memory and exceeded his dreams." Through the crystal windows, they could see shuttles arriving from Earth with new human volunteers eager to join the Foundation's work. Other ships brought aliens who wanted to study human methods and share their own knowledge. The mansion that had once housed a single wealthy diplomat now hosted beings from across the galaxy, all working together toward common goals. The communication system activated with an incoming message from the Galactic Council. Ancient wisdom. Yargoth's weathered face appeared in the holographic display. "Director Tejo, I am pleased to inform you that the Council has approved your proposal for mixed-species peacekeeping forces. The first units will be deployed to the disputed systems in the Vega sector next month." It was another victory for cooperation over conflict, another step toward the kind of galaxy that Veltar had dreamed of. That evening, as the alien sun set behind the floating mountains, Tejo stood on the balcony with his family. Lyra held their daughter while Zara cradled their son. Staff members from dozens of different worlds moved through the gardens below, their different languages creating a symphony of interspecies cooperation. "What do you think the future holds for them?" Tejo asked, looking at his children. "Adventures we cannot imagine," Lyra replied. "They will grow up in a galaxy where species barriers are breaking down, where beings judge each other by their character rather than their appearance. They will be citizens of the galaxy itself," Zara added, "not bound by the limitations of any single world or species." Tejo smiled as he watched his son's eyes track the movement of alien birds in the sky and his daughter reach out toward the glowing flowers in the hanging gardens. These children would never know a galaxy where species lived in isolation and fear. They would grow up expecting cooperation, friendship, and love to transcend all boundaries. In the distance, more ships were arriving at the spaceport. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new partnerships, new possibilities for building a better future. The Veltar Foundation's work was spreading to every corner of the galaxy, proving that Veltar's simple belief in the power of kindness had been prophetic. As the family stood together on the balcony, looking out over their thriving community and up at the star-filled sky, Tejo realized that he had found something more valuable than all the wealth and property he had inherited. He had found his place in the universe, his purpose, and his true family. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what Veltar had hoped for when he chose to trust a simple human engineer with his most precious legacy, the dream of a future where all beings could live together in peace and prosperity. The stars seemed brighter than ever, full of infinite possibilities for the children who would inherit this new and better galaxy.